another week of our Sirius Quilt Along. My name is Holly and Night of String and Story, and it's my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. This week we're going to be putting together our Sirius Quilt Top. Now, if you have already noticed that my quilt top looks a little bit small, you would be correct. Those of you who are participating in real time with me know that I'm actually on a trip to Festival of Quilts in the UK right now, and I'm pre-recording this for y'all. And I'll be honest, I got a little behind, and this is how many blocks I got done. So the most important thing to me is making sure that we talk a little bit about pressing directions on this, talk about how we're gonna assemble these rows together. I wanna make sure that you can see how the quilt comes together. Then you'll just do the rest of the blocks and make a bigger quilt top. So let's get sewing.
I like to web my quilt tops together, which means that I put everything together with chain piecing. So I'm going to stack from my design wall my first two columns and then add each subsequent column back behind. And this is going to make sure that my blocks stay in order as we start to put them together. Over here at the machine, let's take a quick look at how I pressed these. Now, both blocks of the Sirius quilt are assembled as a 9 patch, and you can see that I really focused on the bulky places from that center block, and here the bulky places from the other square and a square blocks, and made sure I pressed the seam so that there's as few places where those bulky corners are all bunched up as possible. Then I'm going to start assembling using that uh, webbing method that I mentioned a minute ago. So I'm going to take my first two blocks and I'm going to put them right sides together like I'm closing a book. And I'm going to sew down that seam. I know that I have as many pairs as I have rows stacked right here on top because that's how I pulled them off the design wall. So I can sew down this lovely seam here. None of these seams match up because the units are different sizes on the two different blocks. So that's going to make it easy peasy lemon squeezy for you to get them matched up as you go along. So pin those in place so your edges are even, nothing's bunching funny. Your seams are all going to lay nice and flat and begin sewing. Once I've sewn the first pair, I will then take the next pair. And again, I'm going to treat them like the pages of a book that I am putting right sides together as though I'm closing the book. I'm going to line up my raw edges and then continue sewing along. Now you can see I very quickly here lost patience with the whole pinning thing. It's totally up to you how comfortable you feel sewing this with or without pins. Now remember, I just did a little baby size quilt, so this is my last pair. And again, put them right sides together like a book, and I'm going to sew right down. Now at the end of this, I know because I only had 3 rows that it's time to start adding the next block onto the end of this bit. And you can see I'm leaving these block pairs chained together. And I'm going to take the next block and again close it to that second block like I'm closing a book, right sides together, and add it on so that I'm gradually building out these columns as I sew down. Now, listen, if this method is confusing to you and you want to just go row by row, or you recognize how the pattern goes together because it's really just alternating blocks, awesome. Because this is alternating blocks, though, it is a really great opportunity to practice this technique. So it's one of my favorites for big quilts for keeping all my blocks in order. And you can see here, this is my third set. So when I lift this up, you'll see the way that my whole quilt top is then all webbed together with those little threads. I stepped away for just a second and I pressed my rows. I could get fancy with this pressing. I spent more energy being fancy with my pressing on my blocks, making sure I finagled where those square and a square blocks were. On this, I simply pressed my top row one direction, my next row the opposite direction, and then back to the first direction with my third row. And if I had the rest of my quilt top here, I would proceed in the same way. Now on these, I did make sure that I pinned where the blocks match up with each other. I want to make sure that those seams nest in together neatly. And then I added some pins in between. I just want to make sure that nothing is sagging, nothing is getting pulled or stretched. As I sew these long seams, it's really easy for the weight of your quilt top to distort things. So while you saw that I very quickly became a little bit lazy with my pinning, just putting block to block, on these longer seams, it really is worth taking that little bit of extra time, dropping some pins in there. Be sure to pull them out before you hit them. And that's going to help prevent distortion and shifting and make it a little bit easier to keep those raw edges nice and lined up as we are going along. I didn't have to worry about keeping my rows going the right way because of that webbing, and it's going to be so easy to finish this off.
And there you have it, rock stars. Our Sirius Quilt Top is all assembled, and next time we're going to talk about how to quilt it. Be sure to visit the extra links below for more resources and like and follow to see more like this.